So this PowerPoint is going to cover narrative writing. According to Purdue OWL, narrative writing is often anecdotal, experiential, and personal, allowing students to express themselves in a creative and quite often moving ways. So narrative writing is basically telling your own story. It does still have to be formal because you are writing an essay. However, it's a personal essay. So I came across this quote and I thought it was very interesting, and I thought it would set a great stage for you to begin contemplating what you want to write about. So the quote is, "We do not write into a vacuum. We write into an interactive universe that hears our daily pages as prayer." So take a minute, you can even pause the video and think about, what are you writing, and how do you think it's a prayer to the universe? What do you think can be fulfilled with your writing, especially with you writing your own, your personal story? So just take a minute and think about what this quote means to you. So I want us to start talking about your purpose in writing, especially when you're writing a narrative piece. You want to ask yourself, why tell your story? So when you're writing your own personal story, it can be very tempting to write it as if you're writing in a diary, like where you're just kind of saying everything that happened, saying everything that came to mind, etc. But you want to be intentional with your purpose. So there are several reasons why you might tell your story. One reason can be power. So you can empower yourself by telling your own story. You can think about experiences that you went through, and then think about how you grew from those experiences, and that can help you to feel powerful. You also have the power to influence others when you're telling your story, and that is also connected to the power to create policy or affect change. And throughout history, we've seen that people's personal stories have influenced change. It has inspired other people to act. So telling your own personal story, it might feel like it's not a big deal because you already lived through it, and you might think, oh, whatever, it's just my story. But it's actually a very powerful thing to tell your story. Telling your story can also fulfill the purpose of connecting to others and also making people feel valid. So think about when you're talking to a friend. If you're telling them about an experience that you went through, and then they share a similar experience with you, it makes you feel like the feelings that you're feeling are valid, and it makes you connect to that person. It helps to strengthen your connection, and it also makes you to feel it helps you to feel like a valid person. So telling your own story can offer these feelings of validity to other people who are reading your story. So it's not just a story, it's something that has many purposes, and one of the main purposes is to connect with others. So one of the questions you want to ask yourself is, what is the point of your story? What can we learn from the story? And in answering that question, it will help you to generate a thesis. So a couple of things to keep in mind when you are writing a narrative piece. One of the first things is that you want to keep a consistent point of view. So point of view refers to first person, second person, and third person, and I have some examples. First person includes I, me, my, mine, we, our, us, and ours. And as you can see, it basically includes your own perspective. Second person includes you and your, and third person we have he, she, it, they, them, and also people's names like Smith, John, etc. So when you're writing an academic piece, you want to keep it to first and third person. Try to save second person for more business writing, like emails, letters, memos, etc. Because, or if you're giving direction, because you're speaking directly to someone. But if you're writing an academic paper, and especially if you're writing your own story, you definitely want to use the first person in that story. If you are writing something like a research paper, you're probably going to have less of your opinion and experiences in that paper, so you would stick more to third person. So it's very important. Uh, Sorry, my computer was freezing for a second. It's very important that you keep a consistent point of view. For example, she advised me to believe in the power of my words. She always makes you feel confident. Now you're writing about someone advising you. You're writing about your own experiences. So why would you switch from first person to second person here? You want to keep it consistent. So this is a stronger sentence or a stronger set of sentences. She advised me to believe in the power of my words. She always makes me feel confident. So try to remember not to use that second person in there. And this is really important. Don't be afraid to use the first person. So don't be afraid to say I. This is your essay. You're talking about your experiences. So it would be very strange if you said something like, Sheila grew up in Guyana when you're writing about yourself. So say I grew up in Guyana or whatever, your sentence or your experiences. So for example, we have you could not trust him again after his betrayal. But if you're talking about your own personal experience, then it's inappropriate to say you here. What you want to say instead is, I could not trust him again after his betrayal. You also want to be consistent in your verb tense. And verb tense refers to past versus present versus future. If you're writing about an experience that you've already had and that ended, then you're going to write about that experience in the past tense. If you are currently experiencing something or you're writing about something more in general, then you would write about it in present tense. And if you will be experiencing something or you're writing about your future plans, etc., then you would use your future tense. So what's important is try not to mix verb tense within the same sentence because it can end up sounding very choppy and just grammatically incorrect. For example, this morning I sat opposite a man in the subway. He was eating chips, dropping crumbs everywhere. I am getting angrier with every passing minute. So if you notice, the sentence started off by talking about the past tense. I sat opposite a man, he was eating chips. And then you just switch to present tense. I am getting angrier. So what would be better is if you said, this morning I sat opposite a man in the subway car. He was eating chips, dropping crumbs everywhere. I got angrier with every passing minute. So you're writing in the past tense throughout the sentence. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that you want to be clear and concise with your writing. So one of the challenges that can come up with writing a narrative piece, writing your own story, is that you have to remember to write it as an essay and not like a diary. So you're not going to include every single bit of that experience in there. You're going to be concise and include just the relevant bits of information. You also want to be organized and intentional. So as I said, don't just write everything, don't include all of the details. Be deliberate with the details that you're including. You want to help the reader see what you saw and feel what you felt. Try to engage the five senses when appropriate and try to show, don't tell. So the five senses are your sense of sight, smell, touch, hearing, and taste. You don't have to use all five senses in your essay. You can just kind of include some descriptions throughout just to help your reader feel what it is that you felt. And this term here, show, don't tell, it's extremely important. So an example of telling your reader something would be, I was insecure. And that's fine to write. However, it becomes stronger when you actually show them. For example, if you said, the first time I spoke up in the class, I was a fresh off the boat immigrant. My professor called my name to read my answer, and all the sounds around me stopped. The only thing I could hear was silence, and my breath getting heavier with every passing second. I opened my lips, and my tongue felt glued to the top of my mouth and dry like I was sucking on cotton balls. My voice cracked as I heard the thick Guyanese accent escape. 23. He moved on, and I sunk deeper into my seat, trying to let my chair suck my body out of existence. Sorry, I made a typo there. And I'm Guyanese, so it's okay for me to say that. So as you can see, in the second part, I was extremely descriptive. I engaged some of the five senses, not all of them. But do you see how much stronger that is because I showed you what I went through and I helped you to experience this experience through my eyes, rather than just telling you, hey, I was insecure. So you don't have to do this every single time you're describing an experience, but it's really great to include more descriptive language rather than just telling us what you went through. So here are some actionable steps for when you're writing a narrative piece. You want to brainstorm to generate ideas, and we talked about brainstorming your topics in a separate video. So I have a sample brainstorm. For example, if I were writing a paper on what led me to English education, I might start by asking that question, what led me to English education, and then just different things that pop into my mind. So I have my childhood experiences, and I listed some things there, jobs, college, furthering my education, and I could develop this a lot more. And so from this, I can go ahead and pull the ideas that I want to discuss in my paper. So we brainstorm to generate ideas, then we create an outline, and I've included a sample outline here. So for my sample outline, I have my thesis statement, which is my educational experiences growing up in Guyana, then moving to America strongly influenced my career path to become an English teacher. My first point would be growing up in Guyana laid a strong foundation for my writing skills and interest in English, and I've listed specific things that I would talk about within that paragraph, such as grammar classes, teacher strikes, which led to a visiting English teacher from St. Lucia. Her name was Miss Palamas. She showed interest in my writing and was supportive to all students, and I admired her. And so this, I would develop these points in more detail and be descriptive in my development in this paragraph. And this paragraph goes back to supporting my thesis statement. Then I'll transition into when I moved to America, the only thing that felt comforting for me were my English classes and teachers, and I have my supporting details. And finally, I have becoming a writing tutor helped me to realize this was the field I wanted to be in. So I talked about a challenge, or I will talk about the challenges college students were having with their writing, and I saw that I could help them. Um, I'll write about people who believe that if you're an adult or you can speak English, then you can write. And this led to students feeling a lot of insecurity and not receiving enough academic support. And for me, I saw my role as providing both academic and emotional support, and I felt good helping my students. So that pushed me into becoming a teacher. So all of the points that I've listed here, I would have one body paragraph, a second body paragraph, and a third body paragraph, and I'll develop it. And each one of those body paragraphs come back to supporting my thesis. So writing an outline definitely will help you to organize your thoughts, which is especially important because this is a narrative piece, so you don't want to just write random things. It will help you to generate your ideas and develop your ideas and just stay on target. And finally, you want to write. So we can feel very insecure, especially when we are talking about our own experiences, and that will prevent us from writing. But just do it, just get it over with, just jump into it. And you'll find that as you start writing, the more you write, the more ideas will come to you, and the more developed your paper will be, and you'll end up going back and taking ideas out because you'll just have so much to say. You're writing about your life and your experiences, and you went through this. So you'll just see, like, when you start writing, it'll be like opening a can of worms. Like everything will just start coming out, and then you'll have to go back and try to stay focused and stay on target. So try not to get those writer's blocks. Like, just jump into it and just start writing your ideas down, and you'll be surprised by how much it is that you have to say. And what you have to say is important. What you have to say is powerful. So don't try not to feel that insecurity, like, oh, my story isn't good enough, or whatever it is that you're feeling, and just jump in and get it done.